Okay, this
Nope,
open
not
meeting.
ready yet. Nope. Wait another minute. Sorry, Mike. Here we go.
You ready?
Yes.
This open meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on July 16th, 2022. All members of the Master Plan Implementation Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This act allows the Master Plan Implementation Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. I'd like to take attendance now. Julianne Hirsch, I guess we know Julianne is not here tonight. Amy Paretsky.
Here.
Millie Milton.
Here.
Ashley Davies.
Here.
Tracy Camerano.
Here.
Adrian Cost. Bill Peterson. Fran Backstrom.
Here.
Gene Kennedy.
Here.
Gene Cahill. Leaf is here. John Campbell.
Here.
Dario DeMar.
Here.
And the staff, Lori Connors.
Here.
Anybody else from the staff attending tonight, Laura?
No.
And representing Weston Sampson, we have Jonathan Law.
Here.
And you said that Melissa Green may be joining us at some point.
Yeah, she has to collect her husband from the train station, so she might join when she gets back.
Okay. So we know who's here. We have the stuff out of the way. So the first item on the agenda tonight is to get an update from Jonathan on where we stand on the project. We have a number of different items that have been ongoing here. So I'll turn it over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Rick. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see the similar faces again from the past meetings. So yeah, tonight I want to go over what we've done in since the last meeting. The most of that has been looking forward to this first public meeting that is scheduled for next week. So I'll go over that quickly. I'll go over the approach to that meeting and hopefully get some good feedback from you all here. So with that, I'll share my screen. You see my screen?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first page. So as per usual, it's the same order. So meeting agendas, project schedule, updates since the last meeting. As I briefly touched on before, we've developed and mailed out a flyer for the community meeting, the first one. We've selected 4 study areas for the community meeting, and we've developed an approach for that meeting, and then we'll talk about next steps. So in the schedule, if you can believe it, we're already past the middle of January. It's crazy how quickly time is going. So we're at this MPIC meeting today, the 4th one. And then on the event schedule here, we have the first public event, which is the community meeting number 1, which is scheduled, as I mentioned, for next week. The updates since the last meeting, the town consultant has completed the traffic counts. So Weston and Sampson needs to take that information to begin traffic analysis and begin conversation with Mass DOT. Now, what that means is we'll look at 3 intersections: Main Church, Main South, and Main and Hudson. And they'll take that analysis and then average month calculation conditions, and then they'll project those conditions for 7 years out. Don't ask me why they do that. That's transportation department that do that. I think they just project 7 years out so we can figure out how the traffic patterns are going to look in the future. So, because if we're obviously going to change the road diet, we don't just want to do it today, we want to do it for, you know, many years to come. So that's why they look into the future. So once we have all that information, we can then kind of decide whether the traffic lanes can be reduced, and if so, but by how much. And that will help us to then develop some design concepts for this new road diet. As I mentioned, we developed the flyer for the community meeting. The meeting is next Thursday at the high school library. We've confirmed a date for the business owners workshop. It's going to be at on February 7th at 7 a.m. Yes, you heard me right, 7 a.m. And then we started to prepare for this community meeting. As I mentioned, we've selected 4 main study areas. We discussed that with Laurie, Rick, and Ashley earlier this week, and they concurred with the areas of study that we should focus on. We've developed an approach. Again, we discussed that with those folks at the pre-meeting earlier this week. And then I'm going to show one of the present image boards that we've put together. We have, I believe, 4 boards that will be used to help people determine what kind of features and look they want for downtown. Something similar to what I showed, I think, at the last meeting or the meeting prior to that. I think that was very helpful in starting a discussion on this call. So if we can use a similar format at that meeting, we think that'll be a great approach. So I don't know if anybody saw this flyer. This is the flyer that developed. Again, as I mentioned, all the information is here. It's going to be broadcast on TV. Unfortunately, the Zoom wasn't possible for this meeting. So if people can watch on TV how the meeting goes, but if they want to comment, they have to come down in person. So there's no, I know we originally talked about a hybrid meeting, but that just wasn't possible.
Yeah,
And Jonathan, if I can just interject, I had a meeting this afternoon with the cable access director, and we were kind of grappling about the format, and we agreed that it would be best if she records the meeting and then it is broadcast at a future time because of the difficulty of filming what's happening at the various work sessions at the various tables. So we agreed that a more summarized version of the meeting would be more fruitful. So if you want to talk about it further after this presentation, then certainly we can.
I just have a quick question, Lori. Do you know which door is going to be open to the library? Like there's a side door to a parking lot that faces the baseball fields, or are people going to go in the front door and then walk through the whole school?
Yeah, that's another thing we talked about this afternoon. One of the fears that we had is how do we explain the little side door?
Mm-hmm.
So we thought that it would be best if people go through the main entrance and then we'll put up signs to direct. And we also thought that it might be helpful if one of the MPIC committee members stands in the lobby to kind of greet people and then direct them to the signs, which will direct them to the library.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of a maze. So
right.
We're concerned that people who, normally don't go to the high school would get completely lost.
Yep.
Side doors, Lori, would be open because from a mobility standpoint, they are the easier access than walking through the school.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of what you said.
Okay, I'm just confirming that the side doors that actually open up directly into the library will be accessible because that is a much, for people with limited mobility, it's a lot easier to go from that side parking lot directly into the library than walking through the school to the library.
I was just kind of concerned about how people will be directed to the side door. Because I, for one, am somebody who is not familiar with the high school, and I found the main entrance without any issue, but there are so many side entries that, I mean, how would we explain that on the, like, how would people know to go to the side entry?
I don't think you really have to explain it, just make it accessible. So, because the people that'll want to use it, I think will be able to get there. So everybody comes in the front. If it's not accessible, you can then explain, go around back by the baseball fields and then come in that direction. So I think it's just, if it's open, that's probably enough.
So are you saying you don't think that people should go to the main entrance?
No, I think they should, but you just leave the back door open for the people that need it. That's all.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the main
yeah.
entrance makes perfect sense, but if someone wants to come in a more accessible way by sneaking around the black box over there, they can do that.
I will ask the school if that's okay.
Okay.
The other thing I just want to bring up here is, Lori had sent to all of us through email, this announcement as an attachment. And then I received through the regular mail, this thing in the mail also. I'm not sure how many people in town that went out to, but I just encourage all of us that had this, sent to us electronically to forward this off to everybody we know, just to get as much exposure as possible, kind of thing, either through mail or putting it up on Facebook or other social media methods. And then, like I said, it came to me addressed as Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation. I'm not sure why it came to that address, but I imagine there was some sort of a mass mailing of this, Lori.
Yeah, so what we did is we did a mass mailing to every single property owner within our study area. So that was about 100 flyers that we mailed out. But that was the limit of the mailing. So then we did the email blast through the town clerk's office. So that was emailed to everybody that signs up for town news.
Yeah.
Then I know Amy's put it on, I think 5 or 6 of the Northborough Facebook pages.
Yep.
It's on the website. It's on the cable access channel. I also sent it to the community advocate for the online version. And I submitted an application to the Lions Club for their sign, but I haven't received any response. So I don't know what that means, whether it will go up there or whether it won't. I had a bit of trouble because there's only 15 characters per page. And I had a tough time having per line, adequate information and only 15 characters. So we'll see what happens there.
All right. Well, like I said, all of us who have this in our inbox from Lori, just send this out to as broad an audience as you can. And we'll get a good turnout next Thursday.
Can you put that on the electronic sign message?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the Lions Club sign.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So yeah, I submitted it, but heard no response.
Okay.
Okay, Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay, so this next image you see is one of the boards that we are going to use to facilitate feedback. So the board will be this big, 36 by 48 on the side of the room on an easel or pinned on the wall, whichever we can do. When people enter the room, they'll get a number of stickers. And the idea is that they look at these boards around the room and stick a sticker in the vote column of images that resonate with them. We could even give them a red and a green sticker, so red is good and green is bad. And there'll be a small sheet with explanation of what they're supposed to do with these stickers. And then obviously there's going to be 4 staff from Weston and Sampson, and then I think a couple of people from the committee there to help, facilitate and guide people through this process. But again, we've used something similar to this previously, and just having people look at pictures and try to imagine if they like or dislike these images are, going to be really helpful to us. And then, as I mentioned, there's going to be 4 of these boards, and the other topics of the boards are on this right-hand side of the screen. So we're going to have images for bike lanes, green open space, pocket parks, river walk, play and fitness, a play fountain, housing, adaptive reuse or new housing, outdoor dining, food, social gathering, storefront signage, seating, traditional seating, playful, lighting, wayfinding, art, and green infrastructure. If there's any other things that topics people think of that should be in here or topics that shouldn't be, then, take a few minutes to think about that as I go through the rest of the presentation, then we can come back and discuss that afterwards. So as I mentioned, I met with Rick, Laurie, and Ashley earlier this week, and we talked about proposing 4 areas of focus for this meeting, and these are the 4 areas that we agreed upon. So area 1 is here, as you see, near Colebrook Meadow, incorporates some of the streetscape on Main Street, and then part of Church Street and part of Pierce Street. Then number 2 is on the opposite side of Main Street, next to the town common, and then the limits end at South Street. Then 3 is probably the biggest focus in the sort of the urban downtown, so that incorporates Blake and Hudson Streets. And then 4 is Assabet River with the recycling / trash facility, town hall, and then the wooded area around that.
Could you explain just for a second, Jonathan, about, what the purpose of these study areas is, how that's going to work at the meeting?
Yeah, I was going to do that on the next slide.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I can just talk quickly about that. So what the focus of this is to get ideas of what people want to see in downtown, and specifically ideas of what they want to see in each one of these zones. And the approach that we're making to this, and you kind of just saw the previous snapshot on the next slide that I showed briefly. It was kind of a bit of a teaser, let's call it. We're going to also give people, when they come in, these circles with images on them. And what we want people to do, those images represent housing or open space or lighting or bike lanes. And we want people to come and put these badges on whichever zone they think that those places should be. So we'll have 4 tables with 1 staff member at each table, and there'll be a large focused map of zone 1, let's say. It won't show all the other zones, it'll just show zone 1. We'll also have trace there and pens. If people want to sketch ideas on there, they can. But what we wanted to do and what we found is that some people get really nervous about even speaking ideas, let alone drawing things out. So we felt that using this technique where people just get, I'll go to the next slide so it's easily explained. They get one of these symbols and they can just take this symbol and put it on that specific area. So we've gone through and come up with a bunch of these symbols that we think are very important. And again, we've discussed this with Laurie and Rick. And again, this is open for discussion of what we should include on these symbols. But someone can come in and go to area 1, and if they think, well, I think area 1 needs more restaurants or a restaurant, they can put that symbol on there. If they think that it should have a pedestrian only zone, they can put that one on there. And it doesn't matter if there's 6 only pedestrian badges on there or 1. If there's 6, that tells us that a few people want the same thing in that one area. So we're hoping that through this exercise, we'll be able to figure out A, what people want, B, how important it is to them based on how many people the number of people who put that one symbol on that specific area. And the idea is that people will go round to each one of these areas and provide input through the form of placing symbols on those plans.
I guess I'm going to just real quick ask a question. one of the things we talked a lot about, which I didn't see here, and if it's not important, that's okay, was like history or historic or anything that points out our history, whether it's the the river or White Cliffs or whatever it is, but like
Oh, so yeah, that's a good point, Ariel. And this is the second list of symbols, but this is only if there's more to add, then we can add more. So historical features are a good one, so we can make one for that also.
if people want it, if I'm alone, that's okay. It just, we've got a pretty nice history here and some cool stuff to celebrate, I think, whether it's the river or anyway, that's up to everybody else. I just figured I'd throw that in because it came to mind.
Yeah, I would think the more of these symbols and abilities, the better. So I think anybody that has an idea of something I think would be good, we should just add it in there and have as many of these as possible for next Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that we should have whatever set we set on, you have 4 sets of them, because I might want accessibility is important in all 4 districts, or I might think seating is important in 2 districts. So whatever you come up with, the full complement of badges, everybody should get 4 sheets of them so that they can.
Yeah.
But we're not this is to create our priorities. We can't create historical features. The historical features are already there. So unless we want to use those badges to say we want to maintain them or secure them, we're not adding historical features. We're trying to add these other things. So
And
I'm not sure
Fran,
if that
I
would
was
be.
thinking, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to figure out what, other than to point out the historical features that are there.
Well, I think if you had some wayfinding to say, go this way and you can see the Assabet River, go that way and you can see the founding father's home, go this way, you'll see our oldest cemetery, just to show people what's there and how to get there, kind of a wayfinding thing for historical reference, whether it's the aqueduct or something else. How do I get to the aqueduct? There could be like, we have 6 symbols. One's the aqueduct where the arrow points to the right, the old church points to the left, the Assabet River points straight ahead. So you can, oh, look, here's the big 6 or big 8 or whatever. And it helps with wayfinding with a similar sign that everybody could say, oh, let's go to this. Let's go for a walk. We can see all 3 in a mile and a half.
Yeah, I think that one can just fall under historical signage.
Right, exactly.
One thing I think is missing is you have multifamily housing, but you don't have like mixed use housing. I know mixed use is talked about. So there might be some people who will be okay with mixed use, but not multifamily, just to have both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as I said, we have more. I just wanted to give you an example of what we're going to do. And same as we have more boards to talk about reference imagery, but I didn't want to show all those tonight because we could be here all night.
I was wondering if you should send the stickers out to everybody. So if someone sees something missing, they could at least get back to you before next week.
Yeah, I can send this to Laurie and Rick, and then they can distribute it to all you.
Yeah, I would say, if we do that way, if people could get back to Jonathan by, no later than, what do you say, like Monday next week, Jonathan, so you've got some time to react to it.
Yeah,
So
that would be ideal.
If you can get that to us, we'll try and get it out to you tomorrow, and then, spend some time with it and get ideas back to Jonathan by Monday next week.
Well, as I said, we decided upon this approach because we just felt as though we're too early in the stage to start designing at this meeting. That's not what this meeting's about. This meeting is, again, to more informational gathering, and I know we've had the survey to do that, but this is going to help to nail down what people specifically want to see in each one of these zones. So once we have an idea of that, that's when we can go full throttle into coming up with a conceptual master plan that we then would present at the next meeting.
I think the other thing that's important to realize also, when we talked about this earlier this week, was that there is going to be the ability to draw on these maps things. The reason we came up with this idea, Jonathan said that in past sessions like this, they found that some people just don't like to draw or hesitant to draw, and they'd rather have things they can just stick on the map. So we're trying to get as many of these symbols out there as possible. But if somebody comes in that night and says, gee, I think we ought to have this, I don't have a symbol for it, they're going to be told, just write it down or draw a picture of it on the map. So really, they'll have the ability to, even if we're missing something and somebody wants to express an opinion, they'll have the ability to draw that on the map, or, you know, the Weston Sampson person can help them draw it if in fact they're not very good at drawing themselves.
So as I mentioned, you know, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for everybody. So when they come in, they'll get this packet, they'll get a sheet with these printed out so they can understand what these symbols mean. And then, you know, they'll get some cut out symbols, one of each, well, 4 of each, so then they can place them on each map.
You might
Should
want
they
to
want to do that.
include a blank symbol, so somebody could write whatever they want on a blank circle and stick it in an area.
Good idea.
Good one, Gene.
So then next steps is obviously we have the community workshop next week, then the business owners workshop. And then, as I mentioned just prior, once we get all this information, collate it, we can begin the development of the master plan. And then also within before the next meeting, we'll get this traffic study count, and then we can start to, you know, work on that as well.
I don't know if we discussed whether committee members should be present at the business owners workshop or not, or if so, how many? Do you have a sense of that?
Is that a question for me?
I guess you or yeah, I don't know.
I guess
I
my,
think it would
think
be
we-
helpful to have some committee members. Unfortunately, because of the early start time, it's going to be 7 a.m. I'm not going to be able to attend that workshop. So having some folks to assist with the setup and kind of like directing people, I think would be great. I have asked the library if there's no meetings the night before. Of course, it's so far in advance, it's hard to determine what the need will be for the meeting room. But I have asked if we could set up the night before, because it's going to be so early. So I'm hoping for that.
yeah, I plan to be at both meetings. I told Jonathan I would kick off each meeting and sort of just give people a brief overview of the committee and what we're doing, and introduce Jonathan and his people, let him take it from there. I think the plan was for the meeting next Thursday night, which starts at 6:30. I think the plan was for us to be in there at 5:30, Lori, is that right? To do the setup of the room?
We could be there even earlier than that. So the school the students leave at about 2:30. So I was told that we could set up earlier, as early as I believe 3:30. So it all depends on what the wish is of the consultants. Would you like to, what time would you like to set up? Would you prefer to set up at, say, 5:30 or earlier than that?
Let me think about that. I mean, I don't think, I need to talk to Melissa because she went out to the school today to look at the room, obviously. So I don't think we're going to need that much time because, as I mentioned, we'll either put these boards on an easel, which takes 30 seconds to put up. I don't know whether we'll have to move tables around. If we do, again, that doesn't take a lot of time. There's no laptops or anything to set up. So I don't envision us needing to be there super early, to be honest.
How about
So I think
5:30,
maybe
Jonathan?
somewhere between 5 and 5:30, I think is going to be more than sufficient.
All right. I think what I'd like to ask is everybody on the committee who plans to be there next Thursday night, could you email Lori and let you know that you're going to be there? And if you are going to be there, could you be there at 5:30? And I think what we need to do is sort of get organized as a committee. I'd like to, if people don't object, I'd like to have at least a committee member at every one of these tables to kind of observe what's going on and see what people are saying. And, you know, Lori mentioned someone to do some wayfinding in the front, maybe at the beginning for a little while. So depending how many of us are there, we can sort of divide up responsibility. So if people are not opposed to sort of playing a role in helping out with this next Thursday night, just send an email to Lori in the next few days so we know how many people are coming, who's going to be coming, and then let's plan. I'll plan to be there at 5:30, and let's do a little organization among ourselves as to how we want to spread out and sort of work with Weston and Sampson to manage this thing. And like I said, I'll do a brief introduction, turn it over to Jonathan, and then we'll just sort of all be at our little assigned posts and sort of help out. Like I said, it'll be helpful to have our own observations of what goes on that evening. And certainly we can also participate, take our dots and put them on the boards and, go over and put our ideas down on the tables also, that we're not prohibited from participating as residents also, but I think we have an additional role to play, help manage through this thing that night. Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound reasonable to people?
Rick, can we
Yes.
just say now if we're coming and that way not have to, Lori
Yeah.
won't to manage all the emails. I will be there at 5:30, for instance.
Okay, thanks.
Laurie, is there, sorry,
Be there.
I'll be there.
Got a list going, Lori? Yeah, I'll be
I'll
there.
be there.
Okay.
I already sent my email.
I did too.
I did too.
I'm like, I gotta do it while I'm remembering.
All
I
right.
did, so I'll be there and she got an email.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Appreciate the support. And maybe Lori, after the meeting, we can email the members who are not there and just ask them if they're going to be showing up or not.
Laurie, is there a way to know prior to how many people might show up? To get I'm not saying an exact head count, but is there a way to be like 20 to 30, 50?
I suspect, so we're not gonna get an advanced head count, but I suspect, or I hope, that we'll have at least 50 people there. So for the business workshop, I'm thinking we'll be lucky if we have 15 or 20. But for this one, I expect a little bit more participation. Do you folks think I'm off base with hoping for 50? You think that's too many?
I think that might be a bit ambitious, just based on the turnout for master plan community meetings. I feel like 30 is probably reasonable, and for the business workshop, I would say 10 would be. I hope it's more than 10, but it's possible. It could be as low as 10,
But now you all see how much fun this is going to be next week. We might have to bolt the doors at 6 o'clock because it'll be overrun with people.
Well, maybe you got to sell it. You sold it to us, but the community hasn't seen your presentation.
Okay.
Once again, that's something we can do between now and next Thursday. As we see people, we can talk this up also and let people know how it's going to work. It's going to be kind of a fun thing. You're not going to just sit there and listen to someone talk for an hour. You're going to get a chance to play with dots and pictures and write on maps, and that may spark some interest. So once again, whatever we can do to spread the word, that'll be good.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Rick. It's not just one of us standing at the front of the room giving a presentation. This is getting people engaged and getting their ideas, but doing it in a fun way and in a way that there's no pressure on them to do anything if they don't want, other than put a sticker on a piece of paper. So, like I said, we want this to be fun. We want people to enjoy it. And, from that, we hope to get lots of great ideas. And that's all I had, unless there's any more comments or
Just for a
anything.
second, Jonathan, let's just circle back to the slide with the boards.
This one?
No, the one that shows that's yeah. No,
This one?
no, the one that's got the boards with the pictures on that one. That
Yeah.
one. So as Jonathan said, there's going to be multiple boards up there. The one on the left shows some of the things that are going to be asked for people to vote on. The one on the right, the thing on the right shows, pictures of other things on different other boards. Just before we close out Jonathan's point here, does anybody have any, off the top of their head, any ideas or suggestions of things that they don't see on there that there ought to be pictures of on these boards? Once again, you have the ability to weigh in after the fact. When Jonathan met with Lori and Ashley and I earlier this week, we kind of brainstormed this. Ashley and Lori came up with some additional things to add. It seems like a fairly complete list, but.
And again, this list was generated from looking at the survey responses as to what people felt were the most important components of a new downtown for them. So that's where we generated this list from.
I was wondering if we should take off the play fountain. We already have Assabet Park. And I know fountains were talked about with the town common, and it's hard with the, winter and blowing out the pipes. I don't know if we want to put the option of another play fountain out there. Since there's one so close by. I don't know how others think.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Anybody have an objection to taking fountain off?
No.
Fountain
No.
off. All right.
I think in our meeting, in our pre-planning meeting, Lori had mentioned it could be more of a water feature, not a splash pad, if we wanted to keep in the idea of having a water feature somewhere.
Oh, okay. So maybe reword it to like a
Yeah.
fountain versus a play fountain
Or just a water feature.
Yep.
I wonder if we could put in a picture of a river walk, just because we have the Assabet in one of our study areas and we have.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
You can see here,
Where is it?
Riverwalk.
I meant a picture, like a.
Yeah.
No.
All the things on the right will be on boards with their own pictures.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
So yeah, so I just showed this one as an example, but everything you see down here will be on another board. So for example, Riverwalk will have two pictures depicting a river walk, one where it's more trail-like, and then one that's maybe a more traditional sidewalk. So there's two different options for people to vote on. So each one of these topics has two reference images that are slightly different. So it gives a person the option to choose one or the other. So for example, you can see parking here. This is on-street parking versus a parking lot. Or this is a roadway diet with a hardscaped median versus a road with a softscape median. So we're trying to give people two different options as to which of these specific design criteria items they would prefer. And we'll talk about this during the introduction so people know what these things mean.
Jonathan, do we have a covered gathering area, like a gazebo or something where if it is raining or something where 6 or 8 or 10 people could hang out in a, some major area like next to 4 West Main Street, if that whole area gets converted to a gathering area where we have all of our festivals, it might be cool to have like a gazebo or a big awning or something where if it is raining or you want to get in the shade in the summer and sit, you can do that as well.
That's a good idea. We could maybe show an image like that under the flexible plaza space on this sheet. So swap out one of these images to show some type of shade structure or shelter that people could use at any time of the year. It's a good idea.
And I'm just going to push it. And again, this is just maybe me being a knucklehead, but some of those shade structures, if they're done right, they can also be very green because one side could be solar panels. So then you're providing shade, being green, looking to the future. And again, it's anybody's call, but it is nice to have, whether it's hot and sunny or raining, a spot where you could still sit and wait for someone to pick you up because you've made arrangements to meet in a half an hour.
Yeah.
That's it.
I saw one last week that was like shade structure, but it was also used as like a little theater where if someone had a musical show or, you know, they used it. I forgot what it was called.
Was it like a canopy shade?
I have pictures. I could send it.
I've
It
seen
w-
those. They're kind of
It
cool.
wasn't a canopy. It was actually made out of, it had like a metal roof. I was in Salt Lake City, but it was also like an event area. It wasn't just for shade, you know,
Yeah. Cool.
it was
Let's not
more.
let's not lose these ideas, because as we get further down the road and actually start doing the design of specifically what we might do, either in this phase or another phase, these things will, you know, fit into more specifics of what we want to build and buy over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, if you think of any other thoughts, you know, once again, you know, you can, I guess the best way to do this is, Lori, I guess if people have ideas, they'll forward them through you and you'll send them to Jonathan. Is that the way to do it? Lori?
Yeah, and Rick, I'll send this presentation to you, Laurie and Ashley, so you can distribute it.
Yes, I will absolutely do that. Sorry, I'm having a little mouse trouble tonight.
Okay.
Can you quickly go back to the zone 1 diagram? Sorry.
Sure.
So I'm assuming that zone 1, 3, and 4 also are on the other side, the westbound side of Route 20, not just the northerly side, but also on the other side, or is it just one-sided?
You mean on this side?
Yeah, no.
Well, the other way.
When you're talking about Main Street,
Yep.
those zones 1, 3, and 4 are all on that one side, but does that include the sidewalks on the other side, or is it just the way
Yeah,
it's-
so these zones just encapsulate the entire roadway in these areas.
So I
Is
guess
that-
my impression, Jonathan, is that the businesses that face Main Street on the southerly side of the street and the sidewalks are all in the zone.
Yes,
Okay,
that's how it's drawn.
okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't all one side. I thought that might be.
No,
a
no, no,
little
no, no,
odd.
no, it's the entire road, it's the entire road, so we just didn't show the buildings, include the buildings on that side, because this is the areas that are probably the most for redevelopment, same as, you know, 2 here.
Okay. All right,
But yes, it includes both sides of the street, yes.
thank you.
But to clarify, it doesn't include the buildings on the south side because they don't have as much redevelopment potential. So it just includes the public realm, just Route 20.
Okay,
Yeah, on that side of the street, it would be to like face of building or property line, back of sidewalk.
mhm,
There's a gap between 3 and 4 because that's all homes right now. So there's really no real opportunity for redevelopment.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want someone to come to this meeting or live here and be like, what? Are you doing what? So that's why we didn't include those portions.
okay.
Any other questions for Jonathan? Okay, well, like I said, I think our plan will be for all those people on the committee that'll be coming next week to plan to meet in the library at 5:30 next Thursday. We'll kind of brainstorm a little bit about how we want to spread ourselves out and what we're going to do. And then if there's anything we can do to help Jonathan, as people set up, we'll do that. And then we'll also be prepared to greet people starting at 6:30. And like I said, I'll do a brief introduction, turn it over to Jonathan, and we'll see what we accomplish. And I think as far as the business owners meeting, Lori, we can just get an email out to the committee sometime in the next week or so with the more details about that and see who's going to come to that and figure out a plan for that. So we'll do that kind of offline and, you know, handle that through an email.
Yeah, for the business workshop, what we were discussing today, Melissa, of course, is here, from Weston and Sampson and I. We were gonna try and see if we could get some business owners to commit to coming, like do an RSVP. Because of course, the interest is providing refreshments. And maybe if we can get an RSVP, we can get a greater chance that the business owners will actually show up that early in the morning. So that's going to be the goal.
I can ask a couple of them here, because it's kind of weird. When I say here, not my house, but we've got Arrow Coffee and we've got Neighborhood Tavern, and even though they're not downtown, maybe they want to be downtown, but they would certainly have opinions on what they would like to see in the downtown, whether they want to relocate. I can ask them, because we're all pretty tight in our little development. And then maybe Arrow says, yeah, I'll do it, and I'll bring some free muffins, or I don't know. You know, I could certainly talk to them.
Sure, might as well. I think if there are business owners that are a bit further afield, but they have an interest in downtown, then certainly they'd be welcome.
Okay.
Lori,
anything
if you wanted help getting closer, like doing phone call RSVPs, I mean, that's the way you get that, you know, you send out the invite, you ask for RSVPs, but then asking for confirmation. I mean, I'm certainly happy to help with making some of those calls. And to Dario's point, every business in town would benefit from a robust downtown, so I'm sure they don't mind being on the outskirts of it, because people will still be driving by them.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you, Fran.
And Millie makes some awesome stuff over there. So,
Well, of course,
the expe-
Millie's going to be there. So,
Right, the
Oh,
Eggs
I'll
Benedict.
be there. Yeah.
And Millie, if you have some buddy business owners in the downtown or a bit further afield,
Yep.
hopefully you can help recruit.
Yeah, what I want to do is print off some of those flyers and basically get those into their hands too.
Yes, yeah. So we don't have the flyers yet. So we'll hopefully, I'm gonna book the room tomorrow morning, so that we can start advertising. So hopefully, Jonathan, you folks can turn around that flyer quickly, and we can start spreading the word.
Yep.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, anything else for Jonathan tonight? Hearing not, thanks a lot, Jonathan. We'll stay in touch, and we will see you sometime around 5:30 next Thursday night at the high school library.
Yeah, looking forward to meeting you all in person. Can't wait.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to get an update on complete streets. I know there's been work with selecting being done, prioritization and that kind of stuff. So Lori, how about an update?
So we submitted by the end of the year the complete streets prioritization plan to Mass DOT. And I was surprised by how quickly they turned around their comments. So we got a full page of comments and suggestions for clarification from Mass DOT. So we had a meeting, by we, I mean Scott Charpentier and I, as well as the consultant team from Woodard and Curran. We had a meeting the other day, was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday, to go over their changes that they made to the prioritization plan based on the comments that were received. So there were pretty minor changes. Mostly it was just clarifications. Some of the widths were modified. For example, Mass DOT wanted to clarify that shared use paths must be a minimum of 10 feet wide. They wanted us to include some language about MUTCD compliance for some of the features, like the wayfinding signs, as well as some of the bike symbols.
What is
And then-
MUTC? What is MUTCD?
Oh, of course, you're gonna ask me for what
I
that
kn-
stands for.
Well,
Dario, do you
what-
happen to know what the words are? It's a.
Not
it's
so much
a
the words, what's the
standard.
concept? What's the idea? What's the concept of it?
It has to do with the regulations. So it's the standards having to do with bikeways and certain transportation features.
Hmm.
So I
Stands for
can
the
get back to
Manual
you.
on Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Saving me. So then they also had some comments about ADA compliance. So there were some modifications made for that. The most significant comment that they made had to do with the Aqueduct Bridge project. So what they said is that it's not considered a fundable project under the Complete Streets program. However, because of the costs and the complication of the bridge projects. But what they did say is that the connections to the bridge would be fundable. So we combined those two projects together. So we combined the bridge connections to the multi-use path project, the multi-use trail project. So now instead of 25 projects, we have 24 projects. And so, like I said, we had our meeting the other day, pretty much approved the modifications that they came up with to address the comments. And there were a couple of minor changes that we suggested. So they are making those changes, and then we plan to file the updated prioritization plan to Mass DOT as soon as those are completed, hopefully in the next week.
So how would I know there were a couple of projects around Blake Street and Pierce Street that were on the list. If in fact those are funded, would the actual work wait until this downtown design was complete to see exactly what we were going to do in Blake and Pierce Street? And then to the extent there was work on the roadways or sidewalks or lighting, we could then use that money to pay for some of that, but we just wouldn't go ahead and start doing street modifications until we saw what the overall plan for the downtown was. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So Complete Streets projects have to be 100% shovel ready. So they have to be fully designed before they're considered a fundable project.
Okay.
So we will not submit projects until they're ready to go. So I anticipate, right now we're in the visioning stage for the downtown revitalization project. So the next stage is the design stage. So I anticipate like a phase 1 project will probably cost about $200,000. It'll probably take about a year to design. So we'll have to go out to bid, we'll have to select a design engineer, we'll have to go through that process, which will include community outreach. And then we have to apply for funding. So at that point, after the design is complete or largely complete, that's when we would submit an application for Complete Streets funding.
Okay.
So I don't really anticipate that we'll be ready to move forward with the project for probably about a year and a half.
All right, well, as long as I agree with you that the idea is to know what we're going to do and then get funding for what we're going to do once we know what we're going to do. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and there are certain pieces that are fundable, and then there are other pieces that are not fundable. So through the Complete Streets program. So what you want to do is you want to use one grant program to match another grant program.
Yeah.
So that way you can help finance the entire project. So the entire project might be $2 million. So 500,000 is just a piece of that. So it can be a complicated project, you know, like I explained to you previously when I did my phase 1 downtown revitalization project. I used 5 different grant programs to fund that construction, which occurred over a 1-year period of time. So even the grant money you apply and then you sit and wait.
Yeah.
So you have to plan your construction time frame to coincide with the grant program's construction time frame. So it can be rather complicated.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting process to go through down the road. First
Yeah.
thing to do is figure out what it is we want to do and how much it's going to cost, but okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, and then we'll have to select a phase 1 project. So, you know, in this example, they carved out the downtown into 4 different areas. So then, you know, once we complete this whole visioning process, we'll have to determine which phase we want to go forward with first. So do we want to do number 1? Do we want to do number 4? We want to do a combo? You know, so there's a lot still to think about before we're ready to pull the trigger on the construction funds.
Okay, thanks. All right, anything else on Complete Streets?
That's all I have unless somebody has questions.
Any questions, Laura? Okay, hearing none, next item on the agenda is the minutes. I have one change I noticed in the first paragraph, the chairman's introduction to remote meeting. I wasn't here at the last meeting. I was kind of amazed to see that Ms. Davies became Ms. Leaf in the next to last sentence, which was news
I
to
saw
me.
that. I was like, okay.
I know that
Man,
Ashley and I have been working together very well, but I didn't expect it was going this far.
You had a very quick
I
romance.
thought I read closely, but I apparently didn't get all the way to the very end. Good catch, Rick. Yes, my husband would be very concerned.
We'll make that change.
Okay, any other comments on the minutes?
I had one other question. It was a sentence that didn't make sense to me, but maybe it does to others. It's on page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th sentence. And it was when it says they might come to the conclusion, but I felt I didn't know what they meant, although they might come to the conclusion. I guess I was confused.
This is the fifth line down at the top.
2, 3, 4, 5th line, page 4.
Paragraph or line? Because mine said that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph.
Fifth line, that process come, although they may come to the conclusion.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
referring to line 3, where my question was being summarized. That would the study come to the conclusion that certain properties might need to could be acquired or should have that conclusion in order to accomplish a goal? And Mr. Archambault is answering. So he's referring to the line 3 above, and I think it's okay as is.
Okay. As long as you understood it.
It should say, it should probably say that, might come to that conclusion.
Okay,
Probably
we'll make
change
that
the word
change.
out of that.
Any other comments or on the minutes?
Did not.
Look all good to me.
All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Somebody has to make the motion first.
Oh,
I'll motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay, you heard a second from that, okay. All right, so now we have to go through this, get my cheat sheet here. Okay, so now we're gonna vote on the minutes. Amy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Fran,
Yes,
Jean,
Yes,
Rick, yes, John,
Yes.
Dario.
Yes,
Is there any other business to come before this august body tonight before we adjourn?
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
I should have asked it when Jonathan was here, but I think you guys can answer it. We were gonna have the hybrid meeting and now we're not. What if people watch it on TV and have input? Should they we'll make an announcement that they can email it? Because there might be some people who can't make that meeting time but wanna watch it and give some sort of comments.
Yeah, we discussed that this afternoon. So the flyer that went out does not say that it's gonna be live. So it's gonna be recorded and then broadcast after the fact. So what we were talking about, Melissa and I, is that at the conclusion of the meeting, Jonathan will explain what the next steps are. And then he will tell people that even people who are there at the meeting, if they have follow-up questions, then they can email them to me. So I'm going to do a sign-in sheet. So I'm going to ask people to provide their email addresses. And then I'm going to have my business cards at the sign-in sheet. So if anybody has follow-up questions, they can ask me. And then hopefully Jonathan will put a slide up with my email address. So people who are watching the meeting can get my email address and then email me.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
thanks.
Rick,
Okay.
I just had a question real quick. I don't know if I heard it, but did Jonathan comment on the traffic data? Has that been accumulated yet?
Yeah, so CMRPC put up the television cameras or the cameras to record the traffic data over a 2-week period of time in January. So I believe they're probably down now. So they are going to be collecting the data and putting it in a format and then sending it off to Weston and Sampson. And then they're going to analyze the data. So that's absolutely in the works.
Do you know if the cameras were at more than one location?
I believe they were at 3 different locations.
Yeah, I think you said they were at the intersections of Main and Church, Main and South, and Main and Hudson.
Great, thank you.
that was it, Rick.
Any other questions or
Thanks for
comments?
clarifying.
Okay. Okay, so we've got the community meeting coming up next Thursday night. Like I said, we'll meet at 5:30, those of us in the committee that are going to be there at the library at the high school. The business meeting will be February 7th in the library, 7 a.m. And we'll be sending out some more information about that between now and then. And then our next meeting of our committee is the 3rd Friday in February, the 16th. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
So
moved.
Second for that.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll go around. I guess we just do this by consensus. If I have to take a vote, Lori,
Fine with us.
take a vote. All right, Amy,
You're
Amy,
the-
Aye.
Millie. Still there, Millie?
Oh, she's on mute.
You're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Ashley,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Fran,
yes.
Jean,
yes.
Rick, yes, John,
Yes.
Dario.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, we'll see you next Thursday night. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.